Hey, Mahroof. Thank you for joining us today.
It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. Actually, I can go off. So, the first question. So, tell us about your most memorable or crazy event experience.
Well, there's been a lot of crazy events that I've been to, and a lot of different stories that I could probably go on for hours about the different experiences that I've had. But one of the most recent experiences that I had was a couple of years ago. I had an event in Dubai, and it was a wedding with Abib John Qadri, who's a great friend of mine, also a great artist. And the thing was that we had a very weird schedule. It was a Friday and Saturday. Friday was in Dubai, Saturday was in New York. And we're like, how is this going to be possible? Because, time difference, the length of commute, like flight and all that stuff. But
wait. So hold on. Let me take a step back. So Friday in Dubai, Saturday, you said Saturday in New York?
New York, yeah.
Oh my God.
So, me and Abib John are like, what, let's just pray and let's just go forward with it and let's see what's going to happen. So Friday in Dubai, doing the event, I'm setting up and doing sound check and all that stuff, because every time we go to an event, usually we go a little bit earlier, set up, make sure everything is good. So we're doing sound check, and out of nowhere, I fall off the stage. And I tripped over, it was like a cable or something, and I tripped over it, and I fell on my ankle. And I sprained my ankle. But at that moment, I wasn't feeling any pain. I was like, I'm fine. And Abib John and everybody else coming up like, hey, are you okay? What's going on? Do you need anything? And the venue, they got scared because they thought I was going to post some kind of lawsuit against them.
Right.
So they came like, sir, can we get you anything? I'm like, I'm fine. I don't feel anything. So I did the event. And when I play, I stand. So I was standing, playing. I didn't feel anything. And then out of nowhere, it was time to go to the airport after our event because we had to catch a 6 a.m. flight to make it to New York, which was going to be at 1 o'clock in the daytime. No sleep, nothing, and just go ahead to the event. So I started feeling the pain after the event, and it was just throbbing pain. And the whole flight, 12 and a half hours, my ankle was in ice. And Abib John was sitting next to me, and he's like, man, I don't know how you're going to do this. So I got here, got ready, got on stage again, but I sat down and played. And then after the event was done, I went straight to the emergency room, and I was like,
oh my gosh.
And the doctor was like, I don't even know how you did this. It was just,
I think flying typically, you kind of swell up a little bit,
exactly,
and things like that. So I can't imagine what your ankle was going through.
I'm tortured during a 12-hour flight is in itself just painful. And
so these are the things, exactly, and these are the things that we go through. Because as a musician and commitments and, flying around and schedules and stuff, you just gotta, you gotta make it. Rain, snow, shine. There's no sick days.
Right. Gig's a gig, right? You got, and you can't miss out on that, right?
Absolutely. Especially because the people that hire us, for the most part, the bride and the groom, they have this vision, this dream, this goal that they want us to be there and perform for their big day. It's a big day.
I mean, given the fact that they one day in New York, one day in Dubai, they had a pretty ambitious vision.
We took on the responsibility, and sometimes, we've learned that taking those risks may be, a little bit risky in terms of events and scheduling, but, we were ambitious and we made it work. But so that's one story that I'll never forget.
How's your ankle now?
Thankfully, it's good.
It doesn't still click or anything.
No, it's been good lately, but I hope I don't develop any problems later on.
Look at that Afghan resilience.
What got you in this path? What was it about music that you knew that this is going to be what you want to do?
It was, music has always been a passion and love since I was 2-3 years old. It's always been in the household, but I never ever imagined that it was going to become my career. Just at the fact that I always did music because of the fact that I loved music. It wasn't something that I was always ambitious about turning it into a business or making it a career or living even off of it. But I just got blessed with the opportunity, and ever since I was 13, 14, that's when I started really performing professionally. I was flying around when I was 15, 16 alone. My parents, they were really against it in the beginning, and then they just started, giving me the, I guess, sharing my vision and my goal and supporting me, even though now that I'm a parent, I don't know if I would let my child go on a plane at 15 years old.
Did actually, I'm curious about that. Did that have to be one like sit down conversation, or what do you think it was more just time?
It was more than one for sure.
Yeah.
I was at the point where I'm like, you know what, I'm performing, but I'm inside of this room and I'm playing for four walls, and I want to perform. I want to go out there. I want like people to hear me. And at that time, YouTube was just popping up. So I put my first video on YouTube, and that's where I got recognized. And all the other Afghan artists started seeing my work and were inquiring about me having me perform with them. But they didn't know I was 15 years old. Some of them thought I was older at that time. But it was many conversations I had with my parents to get them and convince them. And I'm grateful for their support. And I don't know how they did it, but they allowed me to do it.
I was about to say, I feel like that stigma is like so strong in the Afghan community on some level of music being like not a real profession or a real career. Like, you know, we're all grown up being told to become a doctor, an engineer, a lawyer, like the trifecta. How did that impact like your decision to do what you're doing now, and like those conversations that you had with your parents? How often were they concerned or worried, or, you know, came to you with like, what are you doing with your life?
You know, it's a very difficult conversation to have because of the fact that your passion is so strong for something that you want to achieve. But unfortunately, some aspects of that career has had a bad name or a bad rep. And in Afghanistan, unfortunately, it had a bad rep, you know, for whatever factors that it were. At that time, going to an event or performing or being a musician was not looked upon, was looked down upon. So, you know, my grandfather was a respected doctor in Afghanistan, and he sat me down one day and he's like, listen, you know, I love what you do. You're talented. I know that, you know, Khawan gave you a gift, but Bachem, you got to become a doctor. You know, you got to carry on our legacy, or you got to go do something that's a real occupation.
They brought the big guns out. They brought Grandpa.
Oh yeah, when they brought Grandpa out, I mean, that was like, for me, that was a big, like, you know, like a hammer on the head. And but it came to the point where it was so funny that years later, when I pursued music and it was my career, my grandfather said, hey, you know, the other day, one of my friends, he's also a doctor, he called me, he said, wow, we're so proud of your grandson. We saw him perform. He's amazing, you know, this and that. And he's like, Bachem, thank you. You know, you're representing our family, and we're like proud of you. I'm like, wow. It was like a blessing to hear that, you know, from what I heard, you know, 5 or 6 years before that till now. And I was like, well, thank you. So, you know,
that must have been in a very emotional moment.
Absolutely. Because at the time that he told me not to pursue it, it was so emotional, and I was so hurt. But I understood where he was coming from, even at that young age. I kind of knew the perspective because of the fact that politically in Afghanistan, that's how it was. It was what it was looked upon, the vision. It could have been either the musicians, unfortunately, just gave it a bad rep and they used it in the wrong way. I'm not going to blame either or the way it was just looked upon. But that time it was emotionally hurt me, but I continued on with my passion, had the support of my parents who said, you know what, we'll support you for what you want to do. But then when he told me that, I was like, yeah, it was for sure an emotional moment. And I'll never forget that in my life.
Do you feel like the perceptions change now? When I think about like music in Afghanistan now, it's like there's what's that show? Like the it's pretty popular in Afghanistan now.
Oh, the Afghan Star.
Afghan Star,
yeah.
yes. Like, so my entire family in Afghanistan over there watches it, and even my family here watches it.
Sure.
I feel like there's been kind of a shift where like it's more respectable, and like it feels like it's shifted, like it's changed. Have you felt that? Have you felt that shift at all?
Absolutely. The main reason is media. Of course, they contribute to the factor that, you know, people recognize mainstream media and they see it. And I'm happy that they're doing that, of course. These are all media outlets. These are things that we need to advance and become standard with the world, right? Yeah. When it comes down to music itself in general, it's changed. The shift has changed with the generations for sure. And good and bad, I see the pros and cons in either aspect. But these shows, yeah, I mean, like 2016, I went to Afghanistan and I was on Story Afghan and I was at the final with Abib Jan. And I got to see like what the situation was, how excited people were about the competition, how devoted they were to it. And the fan base was like amazing. Mm-hmm. You know, people were really devoted following the show, you know, the whole drama aspect of it and everything for years. And now I know it's a different story, and it's exploded to a different controversial situation. But I think it's a great thing if it's utilized properly.
Yeah. It feels like that's kind of like the thing that makes Afghanistan feel a little bit more modern these days, almost, you know, like it's its way of being like, oh, we're not like just this third world country sitting here in a corner. Like we have artists too, and here's a chance to give them an opportunity. It's really fun to watch. Absolutely,
I agree.
You know, I noticed you when you were saying, you know, as long as it's utilized properly. I'm just curious, like, where would you like to see it going, I guess, moving forward?
You know, there's so many different aspects that need to be changed, in my opinion, but there's a lot of great things going on at the fact that they're opening the doors to new talents, and they're allowing people that have been oppressed all these years, not being able to perform, especially the female side. Unfortunately, females have been oppressed of music and arts for years, and now this is becoming a new outlet or a new opportunity for them to come and showcase their talent and become more mainstream. So those, as far as the opportunity goes, I'm 100% for it. When it comes to the other aspects, which is the technical side, for instance, the judging aspect of how a talent is valued, what standard a talent should be viewed at, different genres of music that they compare to each other, I'm not in agreement with that. It should be, I don't think a rapper should be compared to a pop singer or vice versa or something. I think every genre has its own characteristics. So I don't think it's fair for a rapper to come and compete against a ghazal singer, because those are two totally different aspects.
That's such a good point.
But in general, they're just making so many great advancements, and the opportunity, the chance and the opportunity that it provides, I'm like 100% for it.
When do you think Afghanistan will start their version of The Masked Singer? Because that's what I'm looking forward to.
Well, I mean, that would be interesting. They should. I think you should write a little email to Tolo.
That's what I'm saying.
We'll have you do it, since you already are in cahoots with them. They know you more than they know us. It's more likely to happen if it's you.
It's true.
You and I were talking a little bit about this earlier, Mahroof, before we started recording, but it seems like most of the musicians that you play with are from like that older generation. Whereas, like you were saying, there's this new generation of singers coming out, and like this kind of younger like vibe, and it feels different, like even the way that they do music, just based on like the Tolo videos that I see. But I guess, like, what's that experience been like playing with this older generation, and how has it impacted your genre of music and like the way that you gravitate towards music?
It's a great question. The older generation, of course, their sound, their values, their whole vision of music is different. And for me, the best thing is that I'm able to kind of learn and perform and experience their experiences, and then take that and kind of utilize it when I perform with the new generation. And sometimes that becomes a little bit of a conflict of interest, because some of the younger generation musicians have a different vision. And I'm kind of like, I'm an old school soul inside of a young generation body. So sometimes I view some of their perspectives a little bit differently. But of course, music has shifted. A lot of people say موسیقی افغانستان خراب شده. And I just want to point this out, what that means.
Like it's got bad.
Right? So a lot of people, I hear that sometimes, being in the community, I hear some people say موسیقی افغانستان خراب شده, or رو به خطر است, meaning it's towards danger. But in my opinion, موسیقی افغانستان خراب نشده, because the standard has gone up. We've had advancements in recording. We have a lot of brilliant musicians. We have a lot of artists that have learned music properly, utilized resources in education. They've gotten a proper education in music. But when it comes to singing and singers and this and that, people are judging the style of music now, which I don't blame, because it's not the same anymore. But we cannot say that موسیقی افغانستان خراب شده, because that is a very general statement. I think موسیقی افغانستان has become more of a international standard now. For instance, we have Indians listening to our music. On my YouTube channel, I have a lot of Indian listeners, and they listen to Afghan music and they say, "Hey, this is beautiful." So we're able to present Afghan music in a very international standard, and I think that's not really valued as much as the singers that are coming out every day and all this stuff. So I'm sorry I kind of took this another direction, but coming back to the point that the new generation artists have a different aspect and vision in music, but they respect the older generation. Of course, the older generation always influences everybody. So that comes back to...
Yeah, because when I was listening to some of the videos that you uploaded on YouTube, I noticed that, like, I do see the old, kind of the old soul come in, right? Because a lot of the songs you were playing were these very classical, traditional things that I've heard, you know, that I would hear in long car rides with my parents. But I do notice that you are, at least at times, making some efforts to sort of create, like, a hybrid. Where, like, I think there was a video where, like, you were like, I'm gonna mix this in with Despacito, like, right? Like, I'm gonna do something like that. Do you find that challenge, like, exhilarating to see how you can create those hybrids?
Absolutely. And there's a hidden message in those mashups and stuff that I do, is connecting that bridge of the new generation, the old generation. I try to connect them in a way where they touch upon each other and feel connected, as in knowing that, hey, you know, Despacito can get mixed with Aftal Boranak, or, you know, an Ahmad Zohar song can get mixed with The Weeknd, or, you know, like, these kind of things kind of bridge the two generations together, and it helps me kind of introduce Afghan music to the new generation Afghans that don't really have that much interest in it. I tried to get them interested in it by baiting them.
Yeah,
like, you know, hey,
letting them know that Ahmad Zohar is basically the Weekend of the 70s.
Exactly, absolutely, and that's the whole vision that I have, and it's been pretty well received so far, and I hope to continue to do it. I hope I have the strength to.
Very beautifully done. It reminds me of Afghan weddings, where, like, you're 1 second you hear, like, this, like, traditional Afghan song that everyone's dancing to, and then out of nowhere you hear this, like, other
My
beat
heart will
drop.
go on.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
it's
quite the
beautiful.
mix.
I love it. It's like, it's a mix of all the generations and different cultures. And that's the beauty of us as Afghan-Americans here. We're able to utilize that and this. And I think that's you know.
Yeah.
So, what, you know, you said that you were, at least, you wanted to do this since you were a kid. When you were about in your early teens is when you kind of started to think to yourself, this is actually something I want to continue to build. So for any other 12 to 13-year-old that are listening to this podcast, what are some pieces of advice you would have for them?
I get asked a lot, you know, from the young generation about the future of music, what they should do to pursue it, should they pursue it professionally or not. My biggest advice, honestly, to the young generation is always education first. And, you know, music is a really specific niche of a market, and it's very difficult to make it your living, and especially in Afghan music industry. Unfortunately for us, the only thing to look forward to as far as an income goes is events and weddings. We don't have a strong concert market. We don't have a strong royalties market where we can release songs and get paid for that. So unfortunately for us, it's always just gigging around and doing weddings, which I value and I appreciate, but it is a tough lifestyle. Mm-hmm. So I always tell young generation Afghans that are trying to get into music, hey, you know, go get an education in something else and try to keep music as your passion and your love, and just do it, you know, as a passion and love. And of course, if it takes you places, it will take you there itself, you know, and that's pretty much what I give them.
It's like have a safety net.
Absolutely.
Right. I do wonder, though, like, as I'm seeing, for example, like you or other people who are doing a lot of uploading on YouTube, I do wonder how much, because I know that YouTube has some levels of monetization, but it's like, sure. I do wonder to what extent that can be utilized in ways for people. Like, I mean, you have that direct experience. I mean, do you find that aspect of, do you consider your work on YouTube to be like, this is like part of my business, like this is like a brand?
The thing is, on YouTube, you know, it's a great way of utilizing that portal to make it a brand and make it like a business, but you have to be like, they've made it harder now. Like, you have to have a lot of subscribers, you have to have a lot of views in order for it to make sense and have like a income or a livelihood coming from it. I personally do not. I don't rely on it, and I'll be honest with you, I can't live off $100 a month because that's what YouTube pays me, and I'll say that openly. But, you know, other people, of course, our community, unfortunately, isn't as vested in YouTube I mean, we are vested as in content. There's a lot of content on there, but we don't have that much of a population and viewers like the Indians do or Americans do. And that's where the 100 million views and all that, when they come through, that's where you really start generating an income. So for us, I don't think we have that vast of an audience yet to be able to utilize the monetization on that.
That, I guess, like you saying that gigs and things like that are what you rely on, how does that make you uncomfortable sometimes? You know, like if you're not meeting a certain standard of like this number of gigs, then your income looks very different. Like, how do you deal with that kind of, I don't want to say unease, but you know, like just that everything being kind of open, like in the air?
Absolutely. That's a great question. You know, it's very inconsistent. Being a musician, Afghan musician, is inconsistent. You don't really know. Every single month there's always a different aspect. How many gigs you have, how many gigs you don't have. Ramadan, you don't have any gigs. So there's always a certain threshold that you have to meet. And for a musician, full-time musician, I did it for 12 years. And recently, starting this year, 2020, unfortunately, was a very bad year for everyone, including music and arts. We had all our events canceled, so I couldn't really survive on that. So I ended up getting into another profession of finance. So I do finance now. Now, the whole aspect of me getting into there was obviously because I couldn't survive on only music. And of course, I have a family, 2 children. So it's different. But when it comes to the inconsistency, absolutely. It's not a consistent stream of income, and this is not just only for us. This is for any musician in any community. You're a gig worker. You know, everything is on the fly. You're spontaneous. You really don't know your schedule for a couple of months, but things do arise if the demand is there, and some people survive and some people don't.
Also, one of the sad aspects that within, and I don't think this is uniquely an Afghan thing, but it's like, I guess something I would appreciate hearing from you about is the idea that, like, especially if you want to do work for Afghan, things like that, where it's like they then expect you to give them some sort of discount or some level of like, help me out, like help, things like that, without an understanding of the fact that this is my job, like this is work, and what I'm asking you is to help me, develop this. Like, how have you navigated that?
It's tough, it's tough. And unfortunately, there's been a lot of controversy lately that all Afghan singers in America charge this much, or they do this, or they take big money. But, honestly, there's so many expenses that are involved. There's so many other things that are entailed. There's insurance.
Well, there's ER visits.
There you go, right? So, there's so many things that are entailed that it's not just saying that, oh, Afghan singers charge this much. But Afghan singers do charge a good amount of money. They do have expenses. Unfortunately, the accompanying musicians sometimes do get a pay cut at the fact that, the Afghan singers like to charge a little bit more because of their brand. And they say, well, I'm the brand and you guys are just accompanying me. And I understand the whole philosophy behind that as a business aspect of it. But sometimes there should be a little bit more of an even understanding between the pay that the musicians receive and the singer themselves. And this is a thing that we're all working on as a community, talking about it a little bit, because the musicians need to stand up and say, we need a little bit more to be able to survive. So Afghans do, we'll haggle and we'll talk about this and that, but you know what, it's in the nature of a business, I guess. And at the end of the day, if they value something, they'll know what it's worth.
It's a great way to put it. The work.
Yeah, one would hope.
Yeah. It's interesting when you talk about like kind of the name brand and stuff like that. I feel like amongst like Afghans, even my parents and stuff, when they talk about musicians that they appreciate and that they love, it's always the singers, like they're always like naming the singers. And even when you go to weddings and concerts and stuff, that's the person who's like forefront, center, like you're seeing the person who's singing. Sure. You stand out as, a musician and in your craft. I've seen you play at one concert. I've seen you play at a wedding, and you stand out. But how challenging is it to stand out when it feels like everyone's just kind of looking at, the voice? Like Absolutely. That's who they're just paying attention to. That's
a great point and great angle to see. It was hard for us to do it, but we had to do it for ourselves. For instance, I had to go out there and brand myself as an artist and not just a keyboard player. There's a difference between a keyboard player and an artist. An artist is a person that has their own following, has their own music, has people listen to them, for who they are. And a keyboard player would be someone labeled as just a keyboardist that comes on and plays with someone else and just does like a accompanying musician. That's it. So being a solo artist or someone, like, you have to really work on it in the Afghan community, because we're not used to instrumental music either, like you said. It's mostly vocals, it's mostly singers get most of the credit about everything. And I always say it this way, I say, the musicians, we don't have a voice because we don't have a microphone in front of us. That's the example I always use, because people think that, we're just gonna play and keep quiet because we don't have a mic in front of us to talk to anybody about anything. But
I have to say though, like, if we went to a wedding and they turned your part off and they turned the tablache off and it was just the singer, I think people would be like, oh, like that other aspect is very, very important. Absolutely. I remember going to a wedding in New York like so many years ago, and the power went off in the middle of the wedding. And the musicians, the tablache, he just kept going, like and people were dancing in the dark, and it was literally just to like that sound. Yeah. You realize how like that's such a big part of it. There's like specific beats that you just know are like Afghan beats, and like it makes you want to dance.
No, absolutely. It's a team effort, of course, but supporting musicians have a very huge role in weddings, events, concerts. Like you said, just tell a singer to stand there and just sing by themselves. I'm sure it'll be enjoyable for the first 30 minutes or so, and then after that, it might get monotonous. You might be like, hey, is there any other element that I can hear?
You're being generous saying 30 minutes.
I know. I was like 30 seconds.
It's like, this is nice. I guess if like you make everyone clap or something, but still, then you're still expecting other people to generate music for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to say, one of the things that I really, really like made you always kind of stand out to me. I followed you on Instagram a while ago, and you posted this video one time of you playing just this piano ballad that you made for your daughter, like just this original like sound, and it was so beautiful. And I feel like when it comes to vocals and singing, people are like, oh, you write your own songs and things like that, and you're so unique in the way that you write music too. I guess like you talked about that hyphenated like Afghan-American thing where you create hybrids. What other things inspire you to like make the music that you do?
I really appreciate that. Thank you for pointing that out. I mean, like I said, I just try to do whatever is expressive and from the heart at the end of the day, because it's passion, and art is always a passion. You just try to convey your passion out and let other people hear it and try to relate to it. But when it comes to writing music, I just try to, I listen to a lot of different kinds of music, for sure. I love Indian music. I love Greek music. I love Russian music. I listen to country music. I listen to everything, any mainstream pop. I mean, of course, you hear it all day long, right? Mm-hmm. So, of course, that does influence us as an artist to be able to come out with something eventually of your own. So you take all those things and you kind of interpret it in your own way. And that's when you're able to produce something that comes from you and becomes eventually a signature. So my whole goal is just to eventually be able to have my own signature. It's a very tough thing to do, but I'm working towards it.
Did you, when you were younger, I mean, I'm still presuming that you were focusing in and playing in on the classical music, that the Afghan classical music. Sure. I'm just curious, like, how you navigated that as like a kid living in the US, where like your friends may not be, or at least your non-Afghan friends may be like, this is weird, and kind of like, did you have moments where you were like, oh man, I gotta throw in some Backstreet Boy, I don't know how old you were. So, whatever was popular when you were 12. Yeah.
Like, yeah, we're the same age, so yes, you got it right with Backstreet Boys.
Okay, it was Backstreet Boys. Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. That's our generation, NSYNC and Backstreet Boys, and all that good stuff. It was interesting because I was also, when I was playing music in school, in high school or in grade school or middle school, I was in the band as well, but I was playing drums. So that's what I was learning, fundamentally trying to learn percussion and drums because I love tabla. So that was my starting instrument. So I kind of knew it went hand in hand. So I was playing in the band, and sometimes I would play like an Afghan rhythm, and some people were like, what is this, But some of the other kids that were percussionists, they would come up and say, hey, Mahroof, what's that? That's cool, man. Like, how do you count that? How does it? So we had a cool little understanding. Like, this is my culture. This is what I do. Right. But of course, like blasting Ahmad Zahir on the bus home, I don't think I was really comfortable doing that.
Right.
Because at that point, it was like you said, it's always like this popularity thing, right? It's like what's the trend? Let me follow the trend. Let me be cool, and all that. So it was weird. But when I would come home, then the VHSs would go on, and I would be listening to all the concerts and practicing and all that. Yeah.
Well, the irony is, right, that like when you're a kid, for the most part, at least when I was a kid, like I was so desperate to conform to what everyone else is doing.
Sure.
And it's like as soon as you hit a certain age, when it's like either it's in college or maybe a little bit older, you end up not only appreciating but also kind of clinging on to the things that are not conforming, like
Yes.
like that part of your identity. I don't know, did you have a similar experience?
Absolutely. It's I think it's natural, especially when you're a child, growing up in an environment where everybody shows you what's cool and what's not, or what, even like clothing wise, how to dress, how to talk, how to act, how to cut your hair, how to, there's always like a standard or a level of what's cool and what's like hip and what's in. And unfortunately, a lot of people have challenges trying to be themselves in that kind of an environment. And I may have been one of them, but
Right.
when you grow up, you just get through it. You just get through it, and then you find yourself and you be yourself.
I have to ask you. So you have two kids. You have two daughters, right?
Yes.
How are you going to support them in, being themselves when they get to that place where they feel like they want to conform? We're Afghan-American. Our parents grew up in Afghanistan and were able to like really help us like hold on to our culture. When we're like, one removed, is it important for you to like help your daughters hold on to that? And how are you going to help them not conform, and how heartbroken would you be if they came home and they were listening to like, just something way, I could give examples of what I assume to be way on the like other end of what music is these days.
I would probably be offended by what you think that is.
Probably. So I'm not going to name anything specific. But I guess, how do you navigate that? And how do you plan to deal with that as your daughters are growing up?
It's a conversation that me and my wife always have, we're like, it's a responsibility at the end of the day. Being so vested in our culture and Afghan arts, for me, it's like a part of my life and part of my lifestyle. So I always try to include that aspect of our culture and lifestyle, and my wife as well. We have an understanding that we need to instill that into our children. Mm-hmm. But of course, the environment is not the environment it used to be. And that's one thing we have to adapt to. Me growing up with my parents was a different environment because, me and my wife will speak English to each other. So I don't expect my kids not to speak English and only speak Farsi. I can't do that. That would be hypocritical of me because I'm an American as well. So there's so many things that are different and I have to accept that. For instance, I don't expect, like I said, my children to speak Farsi all the time. I don't expect them to listen to Afghan music all the time either. My daughter loves Disney. I can't tell her, don't listen to Frozen or Let It Go or, because at the end of the day, it's all music and music is a universal language. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. But when it comes to the culture aspect of it, yes, I think it's a responsibility to be able to instill the Afghan culture in your children as much as you could and as much as the environment permits you to. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
One thing I'm curious about. So in terms of Afghan music, I am so like ignorant's a harsh word, but it's just there's so much I don't appreciate or listen to, especially since like it's been years since I lived at home, things like that. In terms of music that obviously outside of what is on your amazing YouTube page, what would you say are some musicians that you've listened to, whether it's recent or maybe not so or maybe within the last like 10, 15 years that you're like, this is the kind of stuff that I enjoy listening to. Do you have any like specific examples?
You mean Afghan or not Afghan?
Yeah.
Afghan, yeah, we have a lot of great talents, that are out there. I don't specifically have like a certain list of people that I would say, this and that. But, in general, I think Afghan music has a lot of potential, a lot of great potential and future, especially in the female generation. I mean, I think the females, there's a lot of talent that's being able to, like I said, window of opportunities there now for them to go out and explore and express themselves and become artists. So, I'm really excited about that to see where the generation of future female artists will go. But when it comes to talents, we have a lot of amazing talents, especially instrumentalists, because that's what I do. So I try to value them as much as I can. And we have some amazing tabla players, we have amazing keyboardists, we have amazing guitarists. I mean, there's so much good talent. I just hope that they're utilized properly and have the chance to be accepted by our community and valued.
Yeah, I think one of my first times like listening to Afghan music with just an instrumentalist and like no singer was at the Afghan-American conference when they brought Salar, who like plays the tabla. That was like my first time ever being amazing. Like, oh, there's no like singer. It's just, and it was just, you're like so blown away by it. Yeah, have you performed, or do you have like have you been brought to like places where it's just you and your keyboard, or like just you making music?
Yeah, actually, recently I was, before I go into that, Salar Nader is a great musician. I respect him a lot. He's studied music from some really, really amazing, musicians, and his guru, Ustad Zakir Hussain, is one of the best tabla players in the world. So he's, we're proud to have an Afghan artist with that caliber as Salar Jan. So I just want to throw that out there in my respect and love to him. When it comes to me performing on a solo stage, I actually performed recently, 2019, here in Virginia. I was they did like a honorary event where they brought me in at Sham Irfan here in Virginia, and I was able to perform for about an hour and 20 minutes myself. And I did solo performance, and they gave me a certificate and all that. So it was a cool experience to be able to just play instrumental music for an audience, because I never did that before. And that was my first experience of doing that live. And I hope that, after this pandemic's over and all that, that we can instill this concept. I think it would be a great concept, and to get people more into instrumental music.
Yeah.
That would be, honestly, so I'm waiting for the opportunity that we can all kind of have these moments and these kinds of events together, play music, enjoy it. I'm sure. While recording things via for YouTube, things like that is nice. I'm sure you miss just having that ability.
Absolutely. It's a different connection when you have your audience in front of you. And Ustad Zakir Hussain, who I just mentioned before, said something very important the other day. He said, hey, these virtual concerts are great, but don't forget that the real concerts are coming back. So don't get used to this.
Yeah. To all of our listeners too.
Absolutely.
It's coming back. So pay attention, especially if you live in Virginia.
Absolutely.
That's right. So, Mahroof, thank you so much for your time. We're now going to enter into the trivia portion of the interview.
This is Weiss's favorite thing to do.
So much. This is what I look forward to. So, for those listening, in case you are unfamiliar, which is very rude because I've been doing it several times now. So the way the trivia works is I'm going to ask you a list of 10 questions. Each of these 10 questions you have about, let's say, 3 to 5 seconds to respond. These questions have right answers. They've already been preset, so I'm tired of people accusing me that these do not have answers. And once we're done, we'll tabulate your points and compare you and put you on the board, see where you'll rank compared to everybody else.
Oh man, I'm nervous.
And Susan, by all means, you are always free to answer, which I think my co-hosts inevitably end up doing anyway, so I'm okay with that.
I'm allowed to veto whether or not an answer is correct or incorrect.
Okay.
I gave her that power last time. I kind of regret it, but it's too late now.
Too late. So,
Mahroof, are you ready?
All right, bring it on.
We should get him to. I'm acting like this is an aside. We should get him to make a theme music for this, by the way. But anyway.
Yes, you're our own ballad. But...
Exactly. Okay, so question 1. Name an ingredient in bologna.
Oh my God. Water.
Oh.
That's a safe response.
That is a safe response. It's correct.
It is correct. When you think of people making bolani or borige in Pashto, or there are different ways to say it in Pashto, but there's always like a little bowl of water in front of you that you're dipping your finger into.
It's vital. It's
I've tripped over that so many times and knocked it over, so that's why I know. My grandma's like,
That's
All right, so that's correct. Question 2. Name one city in Afghanistan.
Kabul.
That's right.
Took the easy way out.
I know. Question number 3. Tabla or keyboard?
Oh no. Oh no. Oh no.
They get hard, I'm telling you.
I don't like this question.
Oh, come on.
All right, I'm going to have to pick keyboard.
Well, I'm sorry, that's incorrect. No, I'm just kidding. No, that's correct. Keyboard is the right answer there. All right, so question 4. Better superpower, being invisible or reading minds?
Ooh, being invisible for sure.
Susan, what do you think? I actually don't know on that one.
Yeah, that's when it comes to a musician, I feel like, come on, reading minds, like, you know what the people want.
We already have
so you're
that
saying reading
superpower.
minds.
We already have that superpower. So
That's
I want to
true.
be invisible and have that in
That's a
conjunction.
good point, because
Yeah.
musicians do seem to be very intuitive, like being able to read an audience
Yeah.
and knowing like that being invisible makes sense for you then.
I think, I don't know. What do you think,
Susan,
Weiss?
Susan, you have to say right or wrong. There's no
No.
way you can.
You're like the way you supported that answer, totally right. You should
There we
get 2
go.
points for that.
There we go.
Okay, well, that is the correct answer because
There
what
we
good
go.
is reading the mind? You can't do anything about it. Like, why would I want to know what someone says? I'm okay. Question 5: better color, red or green?
Ooh. I'm going to go with red, and I'll say why. Because they say red nazar namishi or something, so the Afghan superstition. Wear red.
There's
to
like
nazar namishi.
research that shows that a person's heart rate goes up when they see the color red. I read that in one of those like random fact books.
Wow, that's interesting.
All of that, I'm taking all of that into consideration, but unfortunately the correct answer is green because
Right.
red, it doesn't complement my like look because it kind of, my face is kind of flush, so I like green more as a color. So
like that
unfortunately, all right, so question 6, better sport, soccer or volleyball?
Ooh, soccer.
Oh, you gave that answer so quick.
I know.
Yeah, I love
Susan,
soccer.
what do you think?
I mean, come on. I agree, soccer, and I played volleyball, and I
Ooh. There
can't
you
kick a
go.
soccer ball to save my life.
All right, Mahroof,
There you go.
So you got it right. Okay, question
Ooh, I'm on
7.
a roll.
I know. Question 7. No, you got red wrong. I'm taking.
I think you read that wrong. I think it was maybe
Maybe I did. Maybe I
red.
did. Better. So number 7. Better footwear: sandals with socks on, or slip-on shoes that don't have laces.
Slip-on shoes that don't have laces.
That is correct. I whenever someone has sandals with socks on, it's tacky. I can't.
Yeah.
Better
Weiss just
so-
loves
oh,
his
sorry.
Crocs.
Sorry, Susan. What did you say?
I said you just love your Crocs. I can just picture you walking around with like basketball shorts and Crocs.
Seems comfortable.
You say that so judgingly. I don't understand the point. I don't need the personal attack here.
Try wearing that here when it snows.
Oof.
I've seen people wear that there when it snows.
Oh, there you go.
You East Coasters are ridiculous. All right, so better song. My Heart Will Go On by Celine Dion or Fantasy by Mariah Carey.
Ooh, I'm a big Mariah Carey fan, so fantasy.
Susan, I'm going to let you answer this one.
I just, come on, Celine Dion. I mean, yes, Mariah
Oh,
Carey is
no.
amazing too, but I will say Celine Dion, I don't know if other people's Afghan parents were like this too, but my parents like loved her, loved her voice, loved her music. Like that was like the American artist that they like clung to. Was that just my parents?
Absolutely not.
No.
My parents love.
Okay.
Same here.
Yeah.
My whole
so
family.
then your answer's wrong.
That is wrong, unfortunately,
Celine
by popular
Dion.
demand.
All right. I'm sorry. I gave her the opportunity. You know, it's funny. Every time I defer to Susan, she always makes the guess wrong. She's very.
That's not true. I gave you multiple correct answers.
Oh yeah, you did give him bonus points. I forgot.
True.
Okay,
True.
so next question: better song, Celine Dion, "My Heart Will Go On," or Babu Lali, performed by Farhad Darya.
You know I'm gonna have to go with Bob Lali on this one.
The beat of the song, just every time it comes on, you just
Yeah.
you.
That's a
I
classic.
agree.
That's
that
So-
answer is correct.
So fun fact about that song, the answer is correct, but the fun fact about that song for me is that my sister, for some inexplicable reason, insisted on hearing that song before going to school every day when we were both driving this,
no way.
when we were kids. So I legitimately heard that song for like an entire semester, like as the start of the morning. It's sad because I can't really listen to it anymore because of that, but I still have the nostalgic soft
Wait,
spot
so
for
do you
it.
know all the words then?
I'm gonna move on.
That's as far as Weiss's Pashto goes.
That's true. That's true. Last question. Question 10. You're at a restaurant and you're offered a free appetizer or a free dessert. Which one would you take?
Oh man, dessert. I'm a big. My wife knows, and thankfully she's a great baker, so I'm a big dessert guy.
I don't think there's any free appetizer that's better than a free dessert.
There we go. There we go.
All right.
Agreed.
So
How did I do?
that gets calculated later.
Yeah,
Unfortunately.
we have a very strict algorithm that
Exactly.
we use. So
and it's going to take some time.
Does it have
and-
is there a prize involved? Am I going to get something mailed to me?
Oh, why are you
we'll
presuming
get back
you won?
to you.
I don't know.
I've been keeping a little tally for myself.
It's just
Yeah.
notoriety, like at the end of the day,
okay.
anyone that
Exactly.
can do well on these trivia quizzes, just it pays for itself.
If I know
I love
most
the
Afghans,
questions.
they're competitive enough that they want to win without really caring what winning even means.
True. But there were some great questions, though. I really enjoyed the questions.
Oh, you know what? I'm happy. I got at least one fan. Mahroof, thank you so much for taking your time out and talking to us. Before I do close this up, I do want to give you the opportunity to plug your social media handles, your YouTube, everything like that. We're going to have the link provided for people, but if you can just kind of give us a list.
Sure, absolutely. I want to thank you, Sean, and you, Susan John, for having me here, and I appreciate your time and this intuitive conversation. I really enjoyed my time here, and maybe in the future we can do it again and talk about a couple other things as well. My social media, on Facebook, you can find me, Mahroof Sharif, on Instagram, Mahroof.Sharif, on YouTube, I have a YouTube channel under my own name as well, Mahroof Sharif. So yeah, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, and you can also check out my music on Apple Music and Spotify as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This was such a fun conversation. And yes, everyone follow Mahroof on all different platforms. You will not regret it.
And as soon as things come up, as soon as events start populating, things like that, you're in the East Coast and you're looking, or if you're in Dubai and you're looking for someone to perform at your wedding, you know that he'll play through any rain, sleet, personal injury. He will be there for you.
Yeah. And then the next time we bring you here, we'll do a whole thing on self-care and things along
sounds good.
those lines. All right. Thank you,
Sounds
Mahroof. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.